Okay, so we are ready to start. João, just please confirm if you can hear me well.
Yes, perfectly. Good morning.
Okay, thank you very much. Morning. So, morning, everyone. I'm Enrique. We are here in another Connected Value session, and today with me I have João. João, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
And today we'll be focusing in this topic, so breathable membrane, discussing a little bit of what is a breathable membrane, what its purpose, and what we can offer to the market in terms of this kind of membrane. And so just to remember you that we have a chat available on your screen, so you just can find it maybe on the top or side of your screen, and you just can go into that chat and place any question that you find important, or we can discuss this later, just as you feel more comfortable. Regarding ventilated facades, we all know what's a ventilated facade. So we have an air camera just behind the cladding that allows the facade to ventilate, so the moisture to evaporate. So that's a whole process going just behind the cladding in order to get this facade somehow to ventilate. And we have all this. We can play with this kind of finishing, so we can have very different claddings, very different shapes. But we also know that the main performance in terms of management of water and air and vapor, it's not only on the cladding, but it's also behind the cladding, so in the full facade composition. And we'll be discussing that a little bit more in this presentation. So we have this standard market scheme that shows that the industry right now is going in this one-way direction. So this means that, in our point of view, the manufacturers are producing very standard products, and the customers just go into the manufacturers or go to the manufacturer and just ask for some specific or for some products that they have available, but they don't have even a chance to discuss or to adapt the product to their needs. At Effisus, we really support, and we really would like this to be in a different way within this Effisus methodology, that is an interactive dialogue between the manufacturers and the customers, but not only, so with all partners involved, in order to get the best solution that we can for each project. And this means, of course, understanding every project requirement and adapting and taking advantage of our technology that we have available in each segment of product that we have, and turn it into added value to your project in terms of getting a very specific product or even a standard product that really fits the project requirement. So just giving an overview of our approach to the market, because we don't do this in a linear way just with the client. Okay, of course, we are focusing on the client, but we understand that in very demanding markets in which we are involved, we cannot do this in a linear way. We need to approach different layers of the facade industry, and those, of course, will be the consultants, the architects in the design stage, but also other players that will help us reaching a best solution in the end. So, for instance, laboratories and universities with whom we of course develop our products, we test it, we certify it. So we need to understand each market requirement in order to cooperate with these partners and reach a solution in the end that will just fulfill the market requirements and each project requirements. And of course, insurance companies, the developers, because the whole industry plays as a one single element sometimes. And so here, just really brief, as I'm aware that you already seen this. So we have in the European climate cold on the outside and warm on the inside. That will be here more focusing on the European climate because it's the so the most used in the UK, for instance, where we have many projects ongoing. Then of course we have rain on the outside on the winter season. And then if we look into the facade, the Rainscreen Cladding Facade scheme, we'll see for sure the cladding with its brackets to all the cladding. Then we see some particle board, for instance, or the sheeting board. Then the insulation layer, okay, just within the SFS system, for instance. And then we'll have the plaster board to finish on the inside. And if we try to understand how the vapor diffusion is occurring within these facade layers, so it's coming from the warmer side to the colder side. So if we try to block it, as we'll be talking about waterproofing membrane. If we try to block the rain from the outside, just protecting the sheeting layer, we'll see something like this, just covering this board and avoiding the water to go in. But if we do not, if we do have a waterproof membrane that is also vapor tight, we'll be blocking also the vapor to go out, and of course generating condensation as the vapor will be present within the facade layers, and when crossing the dew point, of course, so when it is turning into liquid, it will be just stuck in there and will be damaged, of course, the interior of the facade, in this case the installation layers that will not be performing well as so. And then if we open it to one solution to let this vapor go out is opening this to the vapor, so creating this breathable layer. So this is the main concept we're discussing this here today. So a breathable layer will allow the vapor to go out, and so any vapor, it doesn't matter, or any vapor, any moisture that we have here in the facade is not blocked here, as it can evaporate to the outside or just go through the vapor diffusion to the outside. Another way of improving the performance of the insulation layer is having here a VCL membrane, as it will block the vapor and it will not allow it to go within the facade, so to the middle of the facade scheme where we have the insulation layer. This will also allow the insulation to be always dry, which means that rain cannot come in, vapor cannot go across the insulation layer, and risking to achieve the dew point or cross the dew point and to turn into water. And then we'll be always having here the insulation dry and performing well. Just to mention that when we have this kind of scheme, even if the weather turns around, so we have vapor coming from the outside, it will not be stuck in here. So we can, when it gets cooler during the night on the outside, this vapor is allowed to go out, or even during the dry season, it's able to evaporate to the outside. So we have here a facade scheme that we cannot say it will be the same to every project, to every climate, but we have here an option that from our experience is the one that is most used and with the best performance. So João, I don't know if you have any, and not yet, any chat.
No, yeah.
You can just help me through with that. I would appreciate. So when we talk about achieving excellence in facade weatherproofing, this is something that we discussed many times as we are within the weatherproofing thematic. And so how do we see the facade in terms of weatherproofing, in terms of layers or divisions that we should approach and that we should understand? So we have here breathable technology, okay? We have here VCL technology as well, EPDM technology or interfaces technology, so something that connects both breathable and vapor with the interfaces, and we can be talking about windows, but also about roofing, existing buildings, so many others. Then we have prefabrication technology, that is a very specific division that we have that basically take advantage of the technology already existing and turns it into very specific solutions. So really understanding very specific projects, very specific needs, and coming to the market with very specific solutions. So that fulfills those requirements. And sometimes it's not able to do that with very standard membranes, very standard dimensions. And so we're able to go all the way across that requirement. And then we have our consulting department that is basically supporting these 4 elements. And this scheme, in fact, is the one we are practicing. So it's the one we have in our company. But we really believe this is the only way of approaching a weatherproofing rainscreen facade and having a really high performance solution, and that again fulfills all the project requirements. So today we'll be more focusing on the breathable membrane, and just looking at a 3D model where you see the breathable membrane on the outside of the insulation layer, the VCL on the inside, and this membrane just doing the connection, as I told, not only windows but others. And then we have breather membrane again that we'll be focusing today. So just speaking from this case from CWCT manual, this illustration about the placement or the position that we can have the breather membrane. And just to mention that this is not a linear approach, okay? We should look at every project as a single one. And so this is just to mention that we can have different places to put a membrane as to improve the facade efficiency. In this case, we have here some problems. So some corrosion of component saturation. This is also of course because of the water getting inside of the facade, or the water being imprisoned within the facade. So components, metal components being corroded. And then we have saturation, of course, so installation becoming wet and mold throw as the water is not able to let the facade to go to evaporate, or it's able to go in, maybe sometimes because of the lack of a VCL, for instance. And so here another problems as well. João, would you like to highlight some of these pictures that we're just seeing now?
Absolutely, Henrique. So here is a couple problems, a couple situations that we face, usually aside because of the lack of use of the breather membrane, or sometimes even a poor workmanship during the installation of not having a breather membrane. I would like to highlight here the case of mold growth, because this is very common, especially in UK market. We see this a lot. And again, this comes from the fact that, as you're saying, mostly when you have a wet insulation, this condensation will, of course, come in through the inside and start having this type of problems. At Effisus, we believe that the insulation the insulation layer always should be dry, or as much dry as possible. That's why we always, in our projects, we see the competition or similar products saying a water repellent, insulation layer, stuff like that. What we recommend is to test it, actually see how this material actually works through the times. I think it's completely different than having a breathable membrane. Other types of problems that we see is adhesion problems, compatibility between substrates. So depending the way it's installed, so sometimes we have an open gap. For instance, we have some data saying that if you have a 1 millimeter gap, and comes through the installation itself, if you have a 1 millimeter gap on the installation of breathable membrane, you actually adding up to 800 grams of waters per 24 hours or per day. So this is just stunning how to see when it comes to all these problems that we see at site. And that's why we're focusing today in saying how it's important to having a breathable membrane in this case.
Thank you, João. Very, very interesting input. Thank you very much. We're now able to see some pictures of the breathable membranes already installed. So both were taken in sites where we are installing or already installed at this time, but at the time they were being installed. And so just to overview what's the main considerations when we're trying to find a breathable membrane or to get one from the market. So we have the different things we can understand, or we can try to understand. So one of them is the protection against driving rain, of course, because as I told before, we are in fact using a breathable membrane as a waterproofing layer. So it is to protect the facade from the driving rain, so we cannot have liquid water coming from the rain and reaching the interior of the building. Then we should also be able to understand its protection to wind and moisture. So of course, this wind we have different breathable membranes. Some of them are more airtight than others, for instance, and some of them play with the pressure of the air. So, but we have all this information should be available on the technical data sheet. And then we have this vapor permeability, of course, because as I told you before, breathable membrane and the name of it speaks by itself. So it's a membrane that lets the vapor to go out. So it will not be blocking the vapor to cross it and to reach the outside where it is cooler. So and then we have also UV resistance, and of course this is mainly because of the installation. So during construction we will have it fully exposed until the cladding comes, and this is something that we should be aware and that we should comprehend. So we need to understand how many times it will be exposed to the UVs, and then if it will have open joints, for instance. So if the cladding has joints, for instance, of 40, 30 millimeters, we should be picking a membrane that is able to support this kind of opening to the UVs, because I can tell you that many of them are not prepared to. So these are some of the considerations. João, would you mind just guiding us to this table, please?
Yes, so here is pretty much our possibilities, our portfolio when it comes to breathable membranes. And again, it all comes to the project experts to understand actually what you're going to need for your project. I like just to mention, you're saying UV on the last slide. So here, actually, this will be quite important when trying to decide or pick which breathable membrane you should choose when you have an open client joint, as you mentioned. So we have a couple possibilities. For instance, the Breda FRB, it allows us to have an open client joints to up to 50 millimeters. It's important to mention that even during the phase of construction, sometimes or most of the times, this breathable membranes are going to be total exposure, 3 or 6 months. So of course, we need UV resistant when it comes to that. Another very important fact is the tear and tensile strength. So as you see here, it can go to a regular breather membrane to even a very extreme resistance to tear and tensile when it comes to breather FR. And the same thing here is a very important topic. UK market, Middle East market, we're constantly facing with this type of projects is the fire reaction resistance. So we're able to provide the class E to the class A2 as 1 to 0, which is the best you can find currently in the market.
Okay, very good. And we also have this, so the last one, you were just talking about fire, and it just reached into this slide where you can have, so this mention to the A2 fire-rated breathable membrane system that we have. Just a few more information, João, that you'd like to share about this specific membrane and system.
Yeah, so I think we mentioned this product a lot, including in our fire-rated sessions when it comes to Effisus portfolio FR system. So here, which is very important to mention about this product is, as I mentioned, when it comes to fire reaction, is the best you can get at the market. And we able to achieve this product because of the whole material properties, because of the whole technology that we have it since 2011. So I think is a very important thing to mention, because after that, or even I would say just a couple of years ago, that's when it comes a very in place topic. But we have this already ready to sell since 2011. And this whole membrane is tested and achieved this A2S1D0 fire reaction classification, including the accessories. So this is quite something different. When I mention accessories, it is the accessories for fastenings, which is double-sided adhesive tapes, fast adhesive tapes for sealing of perforations. So again, it achieved this classification. It's tested as standalone, but also including the whole accessories. What we saw was actually saying, try to replicate a normal scheme that we see in UK, for instance, and say, oh, some people are branching the membrane as a class B, which is okay. The standards say this should be tested standalone. But we decided to go a little further and decided, how about including all the accessories? Would the fire reaction classification remain the same? So this is what we did, and that's why we call it the FR system, because including the whole accessories for the application.
Okay, and it's a very important thing to consider. And here we can see also still regarding this solution and this system. So as you were saying, since 2011 and all accessories included. But we can also see this very, I would say, relevant differences between standard B classification membranes and our A2 fire-rated membranes. So here, of course, we see fire performance, as we were discussing. And then here you also mentioned, I remember in the table, about different levels or different performance in terms of tensile strength. And here we can see that there's really a big difference between this one, so our A2 FR membrane, and a current standard Class B membrane. But also this tear resistance. So in terms of mechanical resistance, this is really a solution that, so this is really improving the facade performance, right? So
Absolutely, Henrique. So what I always mention here when it comes to this is you're not only buying fire performance, and you also gaining a lot in mechanical resistance, tensile and tear resistance in comparison to just a normal Class B breather membrane. Again, because of the whole technology, because of the whole materials properties, as I mentioned, it's based on fiberglass, so it's very mechanical resistant.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, thank you very much. So just briefly going through the method statement of the membrane, also to allow you to understand that this membrane has these interesting features, so interesting resistance, etc. But it's no more in terms of installation than a to the site. And so, for instance, the fixing to the substrate is currently done with the self-adhesive membrane. So both sides self-adhesive, like the tape. Sorry, so like this tape here. So we just remove one liner and apply it to the CP board, for instance, and then it just removes the upper liner, and you can unroll the breathable membrane on top of the membrane, and it will be automatically fixed on that. So this is intended. So this is a temporary fixing. As the cladding then will bring its own brackets and will fix, will hold definitely the membrane into place. So, but even until those claddings, those brackets come, we have really interesting experiences on some ongoing projects, and and some that are already finished, in which they have experienced really high winds, so heavy winds, and even without the bracket, only with this fixing tape, it stayed on place. So perfect, good, very good performance. But again, this is intended as a temporary fixing. And then the same tape in the case of the breather FR membrane, which is also an interesting feature, because it allows you to play with one single tape to do two things with the fire-rated membrane, that is fixing to the substrate and making the overlap. So in this case, we'll be applying 2 lines of this tape on every overlap that we have between rows of this membrane. But as we play with the full portfolio of breathable membranes, we also have cases where we should use different tapes. Even though we'll be always supporting the site, supporting the design, in order to understand these accessories that should be used or not, and how they should be used, because that's something that we really find important to share. We do not believe it will be easier for someone outside this spec of products to be able to understand how this should occur, or how or what's the best accessory to use in this kind of substrate, etc. So here we can see also some mention to the overlap width. So we can see 150, 100 millimeters. I can tell you that this is very usual overlapping width. So, and also applicable to the fire-rated and to the other breathable membranes that we have. We could not talk about breathable membranes and avoid discussing these kind of issues that we have that are perforating the breathable membrane everywhere. So we can see here some pictures that should be familiar to us. So some bracket fixing, and this occurs a lot on a facade with a breathable membrane. Then we have this, for instance, this installation of pipes just behind the cladding. We have perforations like square-shaped perforations, or these most irregular shapes. Then we have coping perforations. We have these pipes just crossing or cables just crossing the breathable membrane, and then we need to deal with all of these. And sometimes I know from my experience just going to the site that these kind of problems, like these ones or this one, are just not treated. So they are okay. It's only a screwing point. This will not affect the overall, or this is included in the deviation of the performance of the product, or something like that. But that's not really the way we like to approach each project and each situation. So we have solutions for each of these situations. And for instance, when we're talking about a membrane being perforated by a screw or nail, we have a very specific tape. João would you mind just sharing some information about these solutions, very interesting solutions that we
Yes,
have for this kind of preparation?
indeed. So here, what we do is obviously look into details of each of those perforations, how actually we need to seal. When it comes to bracket perforation, we use this specific tape, which is called Effisus Tube on DS. So this tape is based on an active sealing technology. It's a double-sided sealing tape, and allow us, once you remove the foil and applying the bracket itself, and fastener these perforations, as you see here on this picture, the tape itself will sort of encapsulate or merge inside whatever you fastener. So here it assures the completely watertightness of this sealing of these brackets. So in all the projects, what we do, and when we have this type of bracket sealing scheme on the facade, is just to apply just a patch of this membrane that comes in rolls, as you see. So we cut it as the dimension, say a 5x5 or 5x10 patch. You apply on the bracket itself, and then you just fasten it. And once you fasten it, it will completely be sealed. We have additional testing on this tape itself. We have a lot of experience. Again, this is all tested, for instance, in the Effisus FR system. So it's very important to having someone to look into the detail, how exactly you're going to seal this perforation. The important thing here is just to pick up all of these details in an early stage. So when it comes to site, we have this no-brainer decision. So it's very easy, very intuitive. The client already know, the installation already know which tapes for each case. And they have everything already ready there. Again, we always go to the site. We always provide all these trainings for the guys, so it's quite easy, quite fast to apply all this membrane perforations with all solutions.
Okay, thank you very much, João. So when, for instance, we're quoting a project, even if it is still in the design stage or if it's already coming to the site, we also take into consideration this kind of perforations, this kind of consumption. So we try to, for instance, to give an estimate of how many brackets we may find on the job, and we also try to provide also already this information even without being requested. So and here just to understand that, okay, we have this kind of situation, but we have many times these tubes just crossing the facade, normally because of ventilation requirements. So, and we can deal with very simple tape to avoid this kind of leakings just on this perforation. Then also different kind of elements and materials that we need to shape, or that we need to find a solution that is able to shape all around it. And here we can have different tapes, and some of them really interesting. There are, for instance, PDM based, but able to be shaped so that we can just turn into the very specific format of the element that is crossing the facade. We can play also with already prefabricated pieces, PDM pieces, for instance, that are so still have the same capabilities of the normal, so the standard PDM, but avoid the need to cut and slice on site and to cover all of it with glue. So making a great finish and better efficiency. And then, for instance, pipes, and we have these tight rings that are just applied on the tube, on the pipe, just on this cable, in order to seal completely all around the cable, and to make a perfect connection with the breathable membrane. So self-adhesive is really easy. Then just to overview a little bit about the importance that we find on detailing breathable membrane. So as discussed, for us, every project has its specific requirements. And so we really understand that for each project, we should have a very specific solution. So not the same breathable membrane for every project. We need to understand each project requirements, and some of the requirements we've already highlighted before, as UVs, as water, as many vapor permeability, so many things that we've discussed, fire, etc. Then this, of course, will allow us to reduce the probability of leakage point, as all of it will be predicted, and we'll be also focusing on the perforations, as we just seen on the last slide. Compatibilities will also be ensured, as we'll be playing with our own accessories, and when reaching other membranes, we'll ask for samples or technical data sheet in order to understand that if it is already tested and if it is in our history of testing. So will allow us to deliver proper training prior to the installation, of course, because when we're close from design stage, we'll have full information of the project, and we'll have better conditions of delivering to the site. Typical details that supervisors at site should attend to. So delivering a manual, a guidance of installation with all the details that the project has. So also less errors at site. So just following this point, and then less material waste. Of course, we'll be understanding how many tapes we'll need for the project. For instance, what's the best accessory to be used, and to explain to the site again how to use it, and so improving the facade efficiency, of course, as a whole. And so that's what I wanted to bring to you today with this connected value session. So thank you very much for being with us. Thank you very much, João, for your presence here today. And you have here my contacts, my email, my phone number. You may also know that this will be available on our website, on YouTube, and if you'd like to give us your feedback on these sessions, it would be much appreciated. I think you already can find on the chat box a link for this feedback. So please feel free to do so if you can. And hope to see you on the next Connect Develop session. Tomorrow, I think it will be related to fire, and on Wednesday, I think it will be related to VCL. So please feel free to attend, as I'll be here delivering it to you. Thank you very much, everyone. And
thank you, Henrique. Thank you.